Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Salvation Army's first online Red Shield event. My name is James, and I'll be your host for the next 50 minutes, which will fly by as we have an exciting lineup tonight. Our keynote speaker comes all the way from America. He has met with 16 presidents, addressed 9 governments, and spoken to over 6.5 million people live. Today, Mr. Nick Vujicic will speak to you about how he coped during the pandemic and how we too can rise above it. You can also catch the opening address by Colonel Rodney Walters, Territorial Commander of the Salvation Army, Singapore, Malaysia, and Myanmar Territory, and the closing address by Mr. Desmond Lee, Minister in charge of Social Services Integration. Last but not least, you will not want to miss our special game show segment with my friends from the Salvation Army's social centers to learn more about their efforts to help the weak and vulnerable during this pandemic. As you hear more about how the Salvation Army has been helping people in need, you can also do your part to help those who are struggling with your kind donation. Everyone has been badly affected by the pandemic, but there are some people, the needy and the vulnerable, who are the worst hit. You can start to make your donation now by scanning the PayNow QR code with a mobile banking app or by donating via the donation link. The goal for today's Red Shield event is $225,000. The amount raised is over $6,000 so far. So we hope to see the amount going up throughout the event. Hey, what's happening? My box seems to be shrinking and I'm surrounded by all my friends from the Salvation Army Social Center. Wow, looks like I'm in a game show. Let me press the buzzer now and see who I get to speak to about the center's efforts during the pandemic to help people in need. Here we go. Whoa! Looks like the buzzer selected Augustine. Now, Augustine, tell us a little about yourself.
Hello, James. Hi, everyone. I'm Augustine, Deputy Head from The Haven, the Salvation Army's residential home for children and young people.
Now, Augustine, during the circuit breakup, now we know that residential programs were permitted to continue providing services. I'm sure safety was a high priority. So how did your home keep your residents safe?
At The Haven, we followed the necessary guidelines and provided briefings for staffs and residents to understand the measures to keep the home a safe environment for everyone. Residents and staff were also grouped in split zones, and all activities were conducted within the respective zones.
Thank you, Augustine. Now, it is good to know the efforts that were taken to keep all residents and staff safe. Now, let's see where the lights stop next. With Muilan, Executive Director from Peace Haven.
Hello, James. Thank you for having me here today.
Hi, Muilan. Do share with us your biggest concern during the circuit breaker and how did Peace Haven address it?
One of Peace Haven nursing home biggest concerns was the residents' welfare, as many of them felt cooped up. For those living with dementia, they simply could not understand what was happening. To reduce their anxiety, we also organized activities to keep them meaningfully occupied and make them special meals to keep them happy. When visitation was not allowed, we used video calls so that our residents could continue to interact with their family members.
I'm sure the residents appreciate Peace Haven's efforts in keeping them safe and well cared for. Through your team's efforts, Peace Haven has managed to keep the virus at bay, and so has all the other social centers under the Salvation Army. Kudos to everyone! Let me press the buzzer now to speak to Yvonne. Yvonne, tell us all about yourself.
Hello everyone, my name is Yvonne. I'm the Center Manager from Family Support Services.
So, Yvonne, now as a community-based center in Bukit Merah Estate, how did your team help the vulnerable during the circuit breakup?
To ensure that our clients do not feel neglected, our social worker at Family Support Services call our clients regularly and check in on their health and mental well-being. As you know, James, many of our elderly clients live alone, and the social interaction over the phone reassures them that they have not been forgotten. We also send them supermarket vouchers as our food ration distribution drive was suspended during the circuit breaker.
Thank you, Yvonne. Now, it's good to know that Salvation Army continue to reach out to the needy and elderly living alone in the community. Hey, Hey, I hear Colonel Rodney's footsteps at the corner. Let's hear more from our territorial commander about the Salvation Army's efforts during these challenging times.
Thanks, James. A very good evening to all our distinguished guests for joining us today. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share about the Salvation Army's work during these unprecedented times. COVID-19 has brought a lot of uncertainties to everyone. In times like this, it is the most vulnerable groups who are the worst hit. In many families, the breadwinners have been laid off or asked to go on unpaid leave. Our beneficiaries are worried about feeding their families and paying the bills. We're also very concerned for some of them who may despair and sink deeper into hopelessness. During this pressing time of need, the Salvation Army has been helping many vulnerable groups, from the young to the elderly, by providing essential services and meaningful programs. We remain committed to be a beacon of hope to the underprivileged, because our love of Christ compels us to extend His love and compassion to all. During Circuit Breaker, the government only permitted essential services to continue operations. While we were glad to continue residential programs, we were stretched in our resources at Peace Haven, Grace Haven, and The Haven. We were glad that many kind-hearted donors and partners came along to donate masks, food supplies, laptops, and even assist in e-volunteering. With their support, we were able to focus on taking care of the residents' health and safety. Thankfully, with the dedication and effort of our staff, COVID-19 was kept at bay from all our social centres. Besides our residential programs, our team at Sojourn also worked tirelessly to support the needs of migrant workers during these challenging times. We provided care packs and emotional support, as many of them were worried about contracting COVID-19 and losing their income. Later on, Sojourn, Care Haven, and other social centres will share more about the outreach efforts to care for the vulnerable and underprivileged in the community. The Salvation Army has not and will not pause our help to the needy. But the depth of our help is dependent on the generosity of the public, and I appeal to you to give from your heart. This year, our goal is to raise around $8.7 million for our social fund, which is expected to incur expenses close to $49 million. For this Red Shield event, we hope to exceed our goal of $225,000. Please be assured that every donated dollar is prudently managed. You may wish to know that for every dollar spent from our social fund, around 95 cents were spent on our social programs to help our beneficiaries. We urge you to donate generously and be a beacon of hope to the vulnerable. Thank you, and may God bless you.
Thank you, Colonel Rodney. Once again, a quick reminder for those who have joined us for this evening's Red Shield event: please support our cause by donating generously. You may do so by scanning the Pay Now QR code with a mobile banking app, or by donating via the donation link. Your donation is entitled to a 250% tax-deductible benefit. Please remember to include your NRRC, FIN, or UEN number when you are donating. I'm encouraged to see from the amount raised that many kind donors have already started donating. Now, the goal for today's Red Shield event is $225,000, and so far, we have raised over $22,000. I'm sure many of you have also dropped a dollar into our cattle pots before. Now, let us take you on a journey of a dollar to see how the Salvation Army uses your donation to change lives.
How can we make a difference? For us, it starts small, with $1. But what can $1 do? At the Salvation Army, 95% of every dollar in our social fund goes towards providing help to vulnerable children and youth, frail elderly, struggling families, isolated migrant workers, and other needy segments in our community. How exactly do we help? For many children like Gloria, home was neither warm nor comforting. Her parents were hardly around, and Gloria was being passed from caregiver to caregiver. making her feel abandoned and hurt. Thankfully, she found refuge at the Salvation Army. Under our care, Gloria learned how to open up to others and gained self-confidence. She also became a mentor to her younger peers in the Salvation Army. Besides vulnerable children, we also care for isolated migrant workers like Raj. Due to his hand injury, he was unable to work. The loss of much needed
to distribute food and care packs to 20,000 male migrant workers and to assure them that they are not alone.
Major Kunam, I'm sure the migrant workers appreciate Sojan's efforts and feel the team's warmth and concern for their well-being. Moving on, let's see who I get to speak to next.
To care for foreign domestic workers caught in challenging circumstances. Despite their own personal difficulties, the ladies wanted to make a difference and help others during the pandemic. Using 30 sewing machines, our ladies worked very hard to sew thousands of masks for other foreign domestic workers through the Sewn with Love mask project. It meant a lot to them to have contributed to such a meaningful project.
Thank you for sharing, Maureen. It is indeed uplifting to hear about such selfless acts of kindness. Now, to lift up your spirits during these trying times, we have a very special keynote speaker all the way from America, Mr. Nick Vujicic. I'm sure you're all eager to hear from this international motivational speaker and New York Times best-selling author. Nick will be sharing about how he coped during the pandemic and how we too can rise above it. Ladies and gentlemen, let us give a warm welcome to Mr. Nick Vujicic.
Hi everyone there, it's Nick Vujicic. I'm so honored to be a keynote speaker here tonight to really help this experience. Although it's virtual between you and me, our hearts are connected. And I want you to know that in this time of safe distancing, there is nothing more important than in a time of crisis and uncertainty to realign our own values and be self-aware of understanding our greater purpose as not a human doing, but a human being. And I just want to say it's an incredible honor that I can talk to you tonight during Singapore Salvation Army event happening right now. And I just want to tell you, I love you. I don't know what you've seen on videos about me. I've been to Singapore, I think 13 times now. They say I run so fast I leave my legs behind. But obviously now with 2020, life is certainly different. I have to say that I, on one hand, am very sad to know the negative impact of COVID and all that within the context of quarantines and people losing their jobs in some places of the world, losing their homes, losing loved ones' lives as well, and going through suffering and pain. And in suffering and pain and crisis, we understand that, especially in 2020, we feel that it's obviously unprecedented and very difficult to try and even correlate a comparison of error or tragedy. And when that happens like this, it's very hard to find stability and not be debilitated by fear. Well, I want you to know that I'm a motivational speaker and I travel around the world trying to inspire people to dream big and never give up. Well, I tell you, this motivational person, Nick Vujicic, who was busy globe-trotting all around the world and trying to inspire people, I'll never get tired of, doing all that. But guess what? I have no choice. And in stopping for 6 months, I have to say that today, after 6 months, can you say that word? Today, Nick Vujicic can look back at the last 6 months and say, okay, that was hard. That was rough. And that felt yuck. And I want to share with you, though, how I did not get stuck in the yuck. And how do we reframe our struggles, our challenges? How do we keep our emotions at bay? And how do we continue as an individual or a family member, or even understanding as a society in the community around you? How do we continue to seek and execute a life filled with passion and purpose in uncertain times? Well, first of all, I want you to know that the first pillar of surviving that helped me was having the attitude of gratitude. You know, they say, yeah, you don't know what you got till it's gone, right? We understand that. And I've said that many, many times. However, 2020 has really stopped me in my tracks to the point where I felt unmotivated. I felt fearful. I had anxiety. I had panic. I felt like I was mentally numb for about four weeks as well. And I'm happy to transparently admit that because we all are human beings and we all feel. And in that feeling, it's not that want to, not feel those things. Of course, you don't want to feel scared. That's true, but you can't change the way you feel. And so in the attitude of gratitude, despite the feeling, so categorizing the feelings separate to the attitude of gratitude, the way that I did this was understanding the power that it's okay to embrace what I feel and not reject what I feel, because what I feel is what I feel. But then what we do with those feelings, sometimes you need counseling, sometimes you need time, sometimes you need more direction. Whatever that is, let yourself go through those emotions. Don't suppress those emotions, and quickly then reframe it to, well, I'm so thankful though that I have this, that this and this and this went well. 2020 though, on attitude of gratitude, taught me a whole new level, where I actually looked back at the obstacles in my life, and I was so thankful for the things that actually could have gone even worse. That's right. That's how extreme I needed tools to reframe my situation as the motivational speaker. So maybe even write down these 4 pillars that I'm sharing with you. So number 1 is attitude of gratitude, not being just thankful for what you have, but thankful for what could have gone even worse. And this is not belittling any of your suffering. It's just a principle and exercise that I intentionally put in my lifestyle to be positive and to become resilient, because resilience is everything when we all go through times of trouble, fear, and crisis. The other thing is understanding the second pillar of the power of perspective. With so much distraction of people's opinions, with, I would have to say, the news, and just like, whoa, this is crazy, right? We could either say this is the most difficult time that the world has ever seen, and we could either conclude in our mind, irrationally or rationally, this is the end of this, and this might be the beginning of that. Whatever that looks like for you, the power perspective of actually looking back where Singapore came from, looking back, the global economic crisis between 2008, 2012, looking back and acknowledging your last obstacle and season of challenge and how you pushed through and what you learned from that and how we all became stronger. You know, yes, there are fears that a new normal is going to be very bizarre and foreign for many of us. And it might take a whole generation of us to actually look back and use this year as a historical point where life on earth changed forever. But that doesn't change the definition of your value as a human being. Uh, the success of yesterday, sure, doesn't determine the success of the next decade, but the power of perspective, whether it's family, business, these are opportunities. They're not barriers, they're opportunities for you to understand that, look, it's not the end of your life. You're going to be okay. We're all in this together, and together we're stronger. And remembering that this is not our first and big crisis, okay? So what do you do with all of this? For me, the third pillar was really important for me to get out in 2020 of being peeled on the floor, to get up on my own 2 feet again. I needed counseling. I needed wisdom. I needed just to talk to someone. I needed to talk to a friend, even if I felt a fear of inadequacy, that I didn't even feel like I had anything to share or any knowledge that they didn't know. And I just called them. It was amazing just calling the friends and not just texting and this and that, but actually engaging, right? I love how Singapore was one of the first, if not the first, country in the world to call it safe distancing instead of social distancing, because we are social beings, okay? And so what we got to understand is the importance of friendships in our life and people around us who you can encourage and they also can encourage. Sometimes we need professional counseling. I've had psychologists over the years to get through my crisis as well. So don't be worried about that. The fourth pillar of surviving is taking one day at a time. It kind of sounds like perspective, but actually it's not. It's you actually setting a pace like a marathon to say, okay, I know that finishing line, I can't even see it. It feels like 1,000 miles from here before I actually feel like myself again. I don't even know if that confidence that I used to have in 2019 will ever come back. What am I going to do if this and this and this happens? Look, we know that there is fear that are irrational fears or rational fears, and you can't change what you can't change, and you got to do what you can do if you can change something. And in the perspective of actually taking one step at a time, it's actually got to do with goal setting. Make small goals, micro goals if you have to then build up your confidence as you succeed in that progress in those micro goals. Does that make sense? So those are things that I had to do and just take one day at a time. Because if you look at what has changed, how many times between, I don't know, February and June 2020, if everyone told you exactly what was going to happen in 5 months, you would have died in shock. I mean, we wouldn't even be able to process how many times, the world is being told one thing and then told another. And so it's really interesting to understand that to keep focus of what's the main thing, to keep your mental health and balance in check, and to not be hijacked by your emotions, make sure that you take one day at a time. When you've done those 4 pillars of surviving, I want to now talk about the 4 pillars of thriving. The power of serving. This is why I love talking with you tonight, because we're here with the Salvation Army of Singapore who've been serving. And look, maybe I can't, with my hand get a spoon and feed someone, or go in my car and deliver an elderly person some food, or help someone physically. But what I can do is be a part of that organization. You see, me and my wife, we have 4 biological children, and we actually sponsor 15 children all around the world who, without our support, would not be able to eat or have shelter over their head, have education, and have medicine and mentorship in a family setting. And so this is the amazing thing where we think, well, I need a miracle. No, you don't. You don't need to be a miracle to you don't need to get a miracle to be a miracle. That's what our life's all about. See, you don't know what beautiful things can come from broken pieces when you give your broken pieces a chance. Then you'll know, right? And so how we see tragedy into triumph, it's all these things put together. And one of these things, which is so powerful, if you're depressed, one of the greatest things is actually engage in the power to serve. Go out there, engage, do what you can to be a part of something bigger than yourself. That those voices in your head saying, oh, you're nothing, you're a failure, blah, 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 right? We know that failure is not a status or a conclusion. Failure is part of the journey. It's a process. Failure is Nick Vujicic's classroom. So when you do that and you actually affirm your value and your confidence based on the fact that no matter what your stupid voices in your head are saying, that you can say, no, I actually helped someone today. Yeah, I'm actually helping Salvation Army help someone else. And I mean, look at what we can do tonight. Talk about global impact. Talk about an impact that is in Singapore, but the ripple effects. You see, love breeds love, and generosity breeds generosity, and humility breeds humility. And that's what we all need, to understand that no one's more important or less important than anybody else, and we are all here together to make the world a better place. That has helped me to go from surviving to thriving. That's number one. Number two, seeing obstacles as opportunities. You see, because I was grown up in or raised up in a beautiful home that loved me, that believed in me. When I heard from other people, oh, that's impossible, it didn't even register in my little mind. I'm like, no, there have been many things that people have said that's impossible, and I did it. And so what's so cool is that when obstacles come, remember, you got to go through that process of, embracing your feelings, right? Putting that aside, not being hijacked by emotions, processing that, going through counseling, taking one day at a time, right? And then talking to people and getting wisdom and saying, okay, what can I do now? And change what I can, and then accept what I cannot change. Are you with me? Therein, it helps you to recalibrate your brain to know that reframing obstacles as opportunities is one of the greatest superpowers that anyone can ever have. And you can have it. It's just intentionally stopping yourself from telling the story that you're telling yourself, or repeating the story that other people are telling you, and to actually give yourself a chance to not just see that you're going to get through this, but to thrive. And start seeing and remembering, oh yeah, remember all those huge companies that were birthed between years 2008 to 2012? Those were the people who were expert reframers from changing obstacles into opportunities. Agree? Great. I want you to know that as an entrepreneur visionary, the third thing to go from surviving to thriving is remembering yesterday but living today. So many of us are trapped in disabilities and feel defeated of the failures of yesterday. Shoulda, coulda, wouldas, right? And then also the visionaries, and in our life, in our family life, whatever it is, workplace, we kind of live in the future. We kind of become now, like numb now, and then just hoping that things would change, hoping that something would open, hoping that me sacrificing my life for this, this, and this, and this, at the sacrifice of this, this, and this, one day it's going to pay off. What if it doesn't? Are you happy? Do you have peace? Do you know that you're beautiful just the way that you are? Do you know how beautiful it is to understand that today is a gift? It'll never be repeated. Every person in the room is beautiful. They have their own story. You have yours. And being able to exchange and engage. And whether you're in a room with your husband or wife, whatever. Maybe you're watching from home. Maybe you're watching online. Maybe you're in a small group setting. I don't know. But first of all, I want to tell you, you're not alone. You don't have to go through this alone. And when you realize that you can, as an individual, learn from the past, dream for the future, but live today, that's when you realize that every conversation you have is so important. Every kiss you give your spouse is so important. Every conversation you have with your children is so important. And maybe this is kind of like a timeout for us to actually do some deeper soul searching, to go from surviving to thriving, to actually engage and value relationships that make all the difference. Cool? Awesome. Last thing is, as you're moving from strength to strength or from success to success, you may not feel successful right now. I've had a very difficult year myself, financially, emotionally, mentally. My soul, my spirit, it's been good, but it's still been very, very hard. And in this, I realized that as I'm now trying to figure out what I can change and do something different, evolve or die, grow or die, change or die, right? What we're going to understand is that we all have this opportunity to have this perspective, the fourth pillar, to thrive from one mountain to the next. Okay, get this, ready? Is actually being okay with setting and resetting new expectations. So resetting old expectations and setting new expectations all at the same time, and letting sometimes some dreams die. Your value as a human being and your impact in the globe and in Singapore, if you have to let a dream die, don't let that kill you. Money, alcohol, fame, and fortune, if you put your happiness in temporary things, your happiness will be temporary. You're bigger than that. You're bigger than a title. You're bigger than a bank account. And so understand that it's okay that at this point to have humility, swallow your pride, get rid of your ego, and say, okay, I'm getting ready to reset. That right there summarizes the fourth pillar of becoming a person that goes from surviving to thriving. And I just want you to know that I'm just like you. We all go through ups and downs. And I want you to know that I love, love, love people who make a difference. And Salvation Army, I just want to tell you, I've got some things here I just want to read to you, okay? I just want you to know that Salvation Army has continued to serve, even in this season, the most vulnerable, to meet the needs of the marginalized, those who've been discriminated against. It's been amazing. I mean, over 80 years. And I'm heartened to know that they continue to do this by protecting vulnerable children and youth, extending help to struggling families right now, providing nursing care to the elderly, helping broken families, and caring for vulnerable foreign workers. The pandemic has caused a lot of hardships, and those in need you and me to empower Salvation Army to help them. And I want you to know that they're tirelessly helping people to rise above their challenges as well. It's one thing to need inspiration, motivation, counsel. Man, I'm actually most excited about, coming down to what's really real and tangible for me is to help the needs of those who need help now, who have a cry of need. And guess what? I am that answer for their cry. You help Salvation Army to be the answer of their cries. Think of that. That's what it's all about, right? I just want you to know that I want to say God bless you to all of you, Salvation Army. God bless you for transforming many, many lives. And I just want you to know, I have a nonprofit myself. I know how important it is to have money to do what you got to do. And so please give generously. You came maybe with a number. Maybe you're thinking of a number to write down on a check. You know what generosity is? Is when you think of a number and you double it and you think maybe that's too much. When you think it's a little bit too much, that's when you're generous. So write down a number today or tonight that actually is like, I can't believe I just wrote that down. Do it. Give generously, because where the seeds are being planted of hope, of love, and help through the Salvation Army in Singapore, man, we're talking about affecting not just individuals, entire families, not just a household, the entire community, not just the communities in different neighborhoods or parts of Singapore, but the entire nation. So as citizens of Singapore, let's give generously back to helping Singapore in this great time of need.
Thank you so much, Nick, for sharing such simple yet powerful nuggets of wisdom which we can apply in our lives. Just as Nick mentioned earlier, do give generously from your heart, as these are unprecedented times. Your donation can help transform lives of the weak and the vulnerable who are struggling during these trying times. This year, the Salvation Army needs to raise around $8.7 million to continue the good work that we do in the community. For this Red Shield event, the fundraising goal is $225,000, and I would like to appeal to all our honored guests today to give from the heart. To donate, you can scan the PayNow QR code with your mobile banking app or by donating via the donation link. For check donations, kindly mail your checks to the Salvation Army, Ang Mo Kio Central, PO Box 640, Singapore 915605. As you can see from the fundraising figure, the amount has gone up by nearly 5-fold to over $111,000. Do give generously, as we need your support to reach our goal today of $225,000. While you're making your donation, let's take a look at the beneficiaries whose lives have been impacted by the Salvation Army's dedication and commitment. Together, with your continued support, we can be a stronger movement in helping transform lives in our community. Oh, wow. I was so immersed in the music and seeing the happy faces of the beneficiaries, staff, and volunteers across the social centres. Welcome to the last segment of our game show. Let's hear from the other social centres about their efforts during the pandemic. Let me press the buzzer now to speak to... Hey, Jennifer, do tell us all about yourself.
Hello, James. My name is Jennifer. I'm a program executive for Prison Support Services Kids in Play.
Jennifer, do share with us how the pandemic affected your regular programs for families in the community.
Over at Prison Support Services Kids in Play, we help children whose parents are incarcerated and also the caregivers. When we had to temporarily pause our face-to-face sessions with our clients, our team increased the number of phone calls to check in on the children and the caregivers' well-being. We also converted our usual face-to-face group sessions into online Zoom sessions engaging children in various age groups and their families through fun and meaningful activities.
So, by tapping onto technology, Prison Support Services Kids in Play has managed to continue providing necessary support to your clients. Now, let's see who we have next. Hey, with Timothy, a social work assistant from Grace Haven Fostering. Hi, Timothy.
Hi, James. Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here today.
Well, we all know during the circuit breaker, the school-going children were placed on home-based learning. I'm sure it was a challenging period for many families. Can you share more about the support which was extended to these families?
Yes, James. It was indeed a challenging period for our foster families, having to care for their children while working from home. For Grade 7 Fostering, we assure the families that help was a phone call away and check in with the families more frequently as non-essential visits were not allowed. We also help to find resources to support their children's home-based learning and find activities to keep the younger ones occupied.
Timothy, I'm sure the foster families appreciated the resources and support from your team. And now, let me get back to the buzzer and see where the lights go to next. Hey, we're going to speak to Phoebe, Center Manager from the Youth Development Center. How are you today, Phoebe?
Hi, James. I'm doing great and I am excited to be here today.
So, Phoebe, how did your center address the needs of the less privileged youth in the community?
Many of our youths were sad that our center had to close during the circuit breaker as they could no longer drop by our center to enjoy the facilities or to just interact with their friends. For youth who required more support, we continue to help them by calling and messaging them. Some kind donors also donated hot meals and our team helped to deliver lunch and dinner to our low-income youth and their families during circuit breaker. To further assist these families, we provided monthly rations to help defray their expenses as some of them have lost their main source of income during the pandemic.
Thank you, Phoebe. It's heartening to hear about your team's efforts and also from the rest of the social centers. I must say that I have learned a lot about the depth and breadth of the Salvation Army's work in the community. Now, back to the main reason why we are all here today. The Salvation Army needs your support to continue caring for the weak and the vulnerable amid COVID-19. Do remember to donate to join the Salvation Army in making a difference today. To donate, you can scan the PayNow QR code with your mobile banking app or click on the available donation link. Wow! I'm encouraged to see the amount raised is now over $136,000. Thank you for your generosity and do keep giving so we can reach our goal of $225,000. Now, I have the pleasure of introducing our guest of honor, Mr. Desmond Lee, Minister in charge of Social Services Integration. We are honored to have him with us today for the speech.
Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to be part of the Salvation Army's Red Shield event today. The fundraiser is now conducted online and all of us can get to know more about your positive impact on the community. To manage the social and economic fallout of COVID-19, the government has rolled out various measures to help individuals and families, such as the COVID-19 support grant. Low-income and vulnerable households are especially at risk. Needs may also continue to grow as the economic slowdown persists. But when we work together across the government, social service agencies and charities, we can achieve much more collectively. Your support and contributions ensure that those who need support receive it. The Peers Network is a good example of private and public partnership. It stands for Partners in Engaging and Empowering Rough Sleepers. The Salvation Army, with other government agencies, community groups, and social service agencies, was an early member of this network. We created an ecosystem of care for rough sleepers, providing them with shelter and support, and helping them move off the streets when they are ready. During the circuit breaker, we saw an increase in the number of people seeking shelter. It was of paramount importance to ensure their health and well-being during the pandemic. The Peers Network stepped up their efforts. Together with other existing members, we worked with new partners who came forward, some 40 community-based organizations, to assist over 600 rough sleepers. They provided social work intervention, distributed care packs, encouraged the homeless to seek shelter, and provided them shelter. You've been a steadfast partner from the start. You came on board readily when we were setting up the network, provided furniture for homeless friends who moved into new flats, supported fellow peers partners during outreach sessions, distributed care packs, helped to transport the homeless to other shelters when some shelters closed after the circuit breaker. I thank you for your generosity, energy, and heart for the homeless in Singapore. I would also like to thank the Salvation Army's Children and Young Persons Homes, Grace Haven, and The Haven, for taking good care of your residents during the pandemic. I visited The Haven in March and saw how the home was well prepared to keep the residents safe. During the circuit breaker, residents were required to stay in the homes. It was not an easy period because they felt cooped up. But both homes came up with creative ways to engage them and ensure their well-being. For example, The Haven started an initiative called Send Your Love by asking people to gift the residents with treats. The community were more than happy to help and responded with the children's favorite food and drinks. The children connected with the broader community of support beyond the walls of the home, which helped them tide over the period. You have done much to support vulnerable groups during this challenging period. And to our donors and partners, thank you for your support towards the Salvation Army. It enables them to continue playing a valuable and active role, strengthening our community support and bonds of compassion and care among Singaporeans. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Minister. I believe today's event has been a meaningful experience for all of us, and on behalf of the Salvation Army, we'd like to thank our distinguished guests and everyone who has donated generously to support our cause. As you can see on screen, you have helped to raise over $178,000 this evening, which is closer to our goal of $225,000. Your support means a lot to the Salvation Army and to all the beneficiaries under our care. For those who have not donated, it is not too late. You can still show your support by scanning the PayNow QR code with your mobile banking app or by donating via the available donation link. So once again, thank you everyone for your support and have a good night. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Salvation Army's first online Red Shield event. My name is James, and I'll be your host for the next 50 minutes, which will fly by as we have an exciting lineup tonight. Our keynote speaker comes all the way from America. He has met with 16 presidents, addressed 9 governments, and spoken to over 6.5 million people live. Today, Mr. Nick Vujicic will speak to you about how he coped during the pandemic and how we too can rise above it. You can also catch the opening address by Colonel Rodney Walters, Territorial Commander of the Salvation Army, Singapore, Malaysia, and Myanmar Territory, and the closing address by Mr. Desmond Lee, Minister in charge of Social Services Integration. Last but not least, you will not want to miss our special game show segment with my friends from the Salvation Army's social centers to learn more about their efforts to help the weak and vulnerable during this pandemic. As you hear more about how the Salvation Army has been helping people in need, you can also do your part to help those who are struggling with your kind donation. Everyone has been badly affected by the pandemic, but there are some people, the needy and the vulnerable, who are the worst hit. You can start to make your donation now by scanning the PayNow QR code with your mobile banking app or by donating via the donation link. The goal for today's Rich Shield event is $225,000. The amount raised is over $6,000 so far. So we hope to see the amount going up throughout the event. What's happening? My box seems to be shrinking and I'm surrounded by all my friends from the Salvation Army Social Center. Wow, looks like I'm in a game show. Well, let me press the buzzer now and see who I get to speak to about the center's efforts during the pandemic to help people in need. Here we go. Whoa! Looks like the buzzer selected Augustine. Now, Augustine, tell us a little about yourself.
Hello, James. Hi, everyone. I'm Augustine, Deputy Head from The Haven, the Salvation Army's residential home for children and young people.
Now, Augustine, during the circuit breakup, now we know that residential programs were permitted to continue providing services. I'm sure safety was a high priority. So how did your home keep your residents safe?
At The Haven, we followed the necessary guidelines and provided briefings for staffs and residents to understand the measures to keep the home a safe environment for everyone. Residents and staff were also grouped in split zones, and all activities were conducted within the respective zones.
Thank you, Augustine. Now, it is good to know the efforts that were taken to keep all residents and staff safe. Now, let's see where the lights stop next. With Muilan, Executive Director from Peace Haven.
Hello, James. Thank you for having me here today.
Hi, Muilan. Do share with us your biggest concern during the circuit breaker and how did Peace Haven address it?
One of Peace Haven nursing home biggest concerns was the residents' welfare, as many of them felt cooped up. For those living with dementia, they simply could not understand what was happening. To reduce their anxiety, we also organized activities to keep them meaningfully occupied and make them special meals to keep them happy. When visitation was not allowed, we used video calls so that our residents could continue to interact with their family members.
I'm sure the residents appreciate Peace Haven's efforts in keeping them safe and well cared for. Through your team's efforts, Peace Haven has managed to keep the virus at bay, and so has all the other social centers under the Salvation Army. Kudos to everyone! Let me press the buzzer now to speak to Yvonne. Yvonne, tell us all about yourself.
Hello everyone, my name is Yvonne. I am the Center Manager from Family Support Services.
So, Yvonne, now as a community-based center in Bukit Merah Estate, how did your team help the vulnerable during the circuit breakup?
To ensure that our clients do not feel neglected, our social worker at Family Support Services call our client regularly and check in on their health and mental well-being. As you know, James, many of our elderly clients live alone, and the social interaction over the phone reassures them that they have not been forgotten. We also send them supermarket vouchers as our food ration distribution drive was suspended during the circuit breaker.
Thank you, Yvonne. Now, it's good to know that Salvation Army continue to reach out to the needy and elderly living alone in the community.